Amen. Mr. Murdoch will let me know when I can go.
You can go. You're live.
Okay. Tonight's meeting, special meeting of the Edmond City Council for April 20th is now called to order. I want to thank you all for watching our program tonight. This will be our third virtual meeting, allowed because the national coronavirus emergency. The city council members are not located in the city council building. Everyone but myself is located and broadcasting from their home. Oklahoma statutes now permit public meetings like this city council meeting to be held remotely. The rules permit either audio only or audio and visual. We are coming audio and visual together here tonight. Before we introduce the people online, I will ask our city attorney, Mr. Steve Murdoch, to make some obligatory remarks regarding virtual meetings. Mr. Murdoch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Edmond City Council will close the council chambers this evening and hold our special meeting by video conference. This change is to protect the public health while maintaining critical operations and is in accordance with recent changes to the State Open Meeting Act as set out in Senate Bill 661. The changes define how to hold open meetings remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic and national emergency. Each member of the City Council and members of the city staff are participating remotely via video conference. The posted agenda provides notice to the public on how to watch the meeting and connect to the meeting. Also, should a connection with any one of the City Council members present for the video conference be lost, the meeting will be recessed to reestablish the connection. We will recess the meeting up to a maximum of 30 minutes to reestablish the connection. If reconnection is not possible, the meeting will be reconvened on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. I'll ask Casey Moore, our City Communications Director, to explain how we plan to meet the open meeting statutory obligation and sequence citizen input using Zoom media. Casey, can you explain all of this for the record?
Sure. If anybody would like to speak whenever the mayor calls for public comment, you can do so by raising your hand. If you're in the Zoom app, that's in the participants module, you can find that option there. If you've called in, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. When it is appropriate, I will unmute you. I will recognize you, ask you to say your first and last name and your address, and then you can move forward with your comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Moore. I would like for each of the council to introduce themselves after I do myself, just so that the people in the audience can recognize you. And I will introduce myself as saying, my name's Dan O'Neill, and I'm working out of the mayor's office in the City First building. David?
David Chapman. I am in downtown Edmond, Ward 1 at the Chapman House.
Josh Moore, Ward 2 in Chipwood Farms at my house.
Daryl Davis, Ward 3 at my house.
Nick Massey, Mayor Pro Tem, Ward 4 City Councilman. I am at my home in Hunters Creek in Edmond.
Larry, our city manager.
Larry Stevens, city manager, and I am in an office in the City First building.
Mr. Murdoch, Cinda.
This is Steve Murdoch here with Cinda Cavell. We're in the City First building conference room.
Okay. And our director for emergency management, Matt Stillwell.
Good evening, Matt Stillwell, and I'm operating out of my office in the Public Safety Center downtown.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We have two items of business on our agenda for the published meeting tonight. The first is the discussion and consideration of rescheduling our budget plans for this year, for the year 20 to 21. Larry, can you introduce this topic for us?
I'll be glad to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Do want to review with you a staff recommendation to change the date of the budget hearing from Thursday, May 7th to Monday, June 15th. Of course, that original date was set before we got into the current COVID-19 situation. This delay in moving it back to June 15th will allow us to have 2 more months of relevant financial data from the state on both sales and use tax. that we can use in making revenue projections for the 2021 budget. And not only does that date allow us to have 2 more months of that data, but it also allows us to continue to meet the statutory requirements for budget submission if the state does not make any changes in terms of extending the budget time frame. So we feel it's a good date. It gives us some additional time. We definitely need to look at additional financial data, especially in the next couple of months. And again, it does allow us to, if you want to have the hearing on the 15th of June, then you could formally adopt the budget potentially at your next regular meeting, which would be a week later on June 22nd. And if the state does allow an extension, then you would still have the flexibility to adjust that schedule as you feel appropriate. The other thing that we would ask is that you determine what time of the day you want to start that. I think we've traditionally done those in the range of 8:30 or 9 or 9:30. And that would again be on Monday, June 15th. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is that a council date?
No, it is not. It is a Monday, and you've had several special city council meetings recently on that day, but it actually is between 2 of your regularly scheduled meetings.
Okay, thank you. Josh,
So, yeah, Larry, if that's our budget hearing day, how much, when do you think you would have the packet out to us?
We would anticipate having the proposed budget to you probably at least a week in advance.
Okay.
So roughly around the 7th of June. What we're trying to do is get the benefit of that second additional monthly check from the state on both sales and use tax. It just helps us in the projections, gives us a better feel of the type of impact that we can expect from what we're looking at now. So probably in line with that. It might even be just a little bit later than that, but we definitely will try to give you as much time as we can. We just want to take advantage of that extra check.
Okay.
any other questions, council?
No.
Motion to approve moving the meeting from 7 May to 15 June.
So moved.
Second,
Cindy, would you please call the roll call?
Yes, council members Chapman,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Davis,
yes.
Massey,
Yes.
Mayor O'Neill.
Yes, that motion passed 5-0.
If you don't mind, Mayor or members of the council, do you have a specific time that you want to set that to start on that day?
8:30 sounds fine to me.
I got nothing.
What?
I'm good. I've got nothing. I'm good. Whenever you want to start, we'll start.
8:30 is fine.
8:30 is fine.
Josh, you pouring cement that day?
We won't now, but
All right. Motion carries to have that at, I'm sure 8:30 is fine. Thank you, Larry.
Yes.
The second item is discussion and amendment to possibly revise the declaration of emergency regarding the COVID-19 issue that we approved last April 6th. I don't see us approving any changes tonight, but just sort of going over some of the things that have happened and possibly give some recommendations to the city staff regarding this upcoming issue. History-wise, it was 6 weeks ago on March 11th when the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. The president declared a national emergency on the 13th of March, that was a Friday. The governor declared a state of emergency on Sunday, March 15th, and the city council went into special session and declared emergency March 18th. We've amended that 3 times since then, on March 25th, March 30th, and on April 6th. And now the emergency has been extended to April 30th. The purpose of our meeting tonight really is just to review the current status of the emergency in Edmond and consider changes if necessary or provide guidance to staff on future changes. Last week, we received our first reports from the county health department that talked about the virus and how it affected our city as a part of our city, as opposed to just a larger Oklahoma County report. We've been asking for that information for some time. The governor saw fit that it happened, and we find that information helpful. I'll ask Larry Stevens to give us a quick update on city services regarding the changes that we've made since the virus hit. Larry, can you do that if you would, please, right now?
Sure, be glad to, Mayor. Actually, last week was a little bit quieter from our perspective in terms of new developments since we started this situation. And I think at this point, many of us are waiting to see what the governor will say later this week about his plans for moving forward. We certainly understand and appreciate everyone wanting to know how things will evolve, and I'm sure there's a lot of anticipation for what may be discussed at that point. The only adjustment that I would like to specifically note is that unfortunately it became necessary for us to close the enclosed fishing dock at Spring Creek Park at Arcadia Lake. And the reason is very simple. People were not practicing social distancing, which was one of the requirements of using that facility. So as a result of that, that enclosed dock is now closed.
I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about that. I want to thank the city staff and for promoting the stay home, stay safe signage that we spread around town. I thought that worked well, and I want to thank for all the cooperation in making that happen. It's just a gentle reminder to the community that we have an emergency here, and we appreciate their support. Do you want to introduce Matt for us, Larry?
Okay, Matt Stillwell is our Director of Public Safety Communications. As all of you know and our staff knows, he's basically our point person for keeping us in line with evolving events concerning this situation, both at the national and state level and at the county level. So Matt's the first guy we look to, and right now we're also looking to him for severe weather advice.
I turned my weather radio off. It's been going off here this afternoon.
Good for you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stevens, and good evening, Mayor and members of the council. And as you mentioned, Mayor, the state is now providing us local information as to number of cases and number of deaths. It's provided by zip code. So I just wanted to preface my numbers here with the number of cases in Edmond. We're very confident on that number based on information that we received from the state regarding first responders. They only provide numbers of cases in that report. So in Edmond currently we have 40 cases that have been confirmed. I'll also say, as we run these numbers by zip code, so if we look at what the media is reporting, or even if you go to the dashboard and look at the numbers yourself, I think today's number listed there for Edmond is 118 cases. So we're thankful that we're able to break that number down further because of the ambiguity of the zip codes overlapping into other jurisdictions around us. So we're very confident in that number of 40 cases. However, when we get to the, in fact, that number was 118 that the media and the dashboard's reporting. So we're actually at 40. And then when we get to the deaths, it becomes ambiguous again. And so looking at the data, we have 2 of our 6 zip codes that report deaths. The 73034 zip code reports 1, while 73013 reports 4. And there is a lot of overlap in that 73013. So we have up to 5 deaths here in Edmond. We look at these numbers each and every day, and we will provide those to you as you need them. You asked about hospitalizations. And again, we're not getting a local breakdown on that. In fact, we're not even getting a county breakdown on that. So really all we have at the state is a total of 561 hospitalizations since the beginning of the event. And last Friday, they reported that there were 307 active hospitalizations due to the COVID-19 in the state of Oklahoma. Next question is, have we peaked? And that's a really good question, considering, I think, Mayor, you're going to talk a little bit about what's coming out of the White House with the three-step approach to getting back to some sort of normalcy. And but the criteria in step one is really to see a 14-day decrease in some of our key and critical numbers. The numbers that we get, right after the weekend, they seem to drop every weekend because there's less staff on duty, less tests are being done. So, we're possibly plateauing here. I don't think we're seeing a decline at this point, but we're going to rely on the experts and the number crunchers at the state health department and in the governor's office to make that determination. So the official peak from the health department is tomorrow, the 21st. However, we've heard other experts in the state of Oklahoma claim that that peak may not occur until April 30th. So again, we're juggling information a little bit. As I've looked at the numbers here for the past week, it appears that we're in a plateau, and we'd just like to hear the news at the state level to see if they're in agreement with that opinion. And then the other question you had for us, Mayor, was, has Oklahoma started testing for antiviral coronavirus antigens? And as a matter of fact, last Friday, the state performed their first 1,000 tests, and they don't have a distinct number as to how many out of those 1,000 tested positively, but their report was few. So we'll have more information on that as that initiative gets off the ground, and we'll have a better understanding as to how many of these tests will be done. I certainly believe that sort of testing will play a major role in us getting through the 3 steps to normalcy. So I don't know if you have any further questions as to our numbers. We certainly appreciate everything that you've done, Mayor, and council members in your proclamations to get our public and our citizens to social distance and to be smart but safer at home. I think, if we get into this plateau, the one thing I can say as an emergency manager is that that's not necessarily the time to become complacent. If you look at all 3 of the steps that are outlined from the White House, they all have elements of social distancing attached to them. So I know it's getting old for a lot of people. I think we're 6 weeks into this thing. But we do continue to be, we continue to have the need to be diligent and to keep practicing the CDC guidelines along with social distancing measures in order to keep the numbers moving in the direction that we want them to see them go. So.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions, council, for Mr. Stillwell?
No.
Thank you again, Matt. We really appreciate your report. Since we last had our last meeting where we amended the proclamation, that was last Monday, there have been some changes that have happened. The president opened up or announced his Opening Up America Again program that required or calls for a 3-phase program to get people back to work while protecting American lives. The governor last week took steps to allow hospitals to start caring for regular patients and undoing some of the edicts he had issued that held beds in reserve for mass COVID patients. And last thing he did was he extended the stay-at-home deadline to May 6th. I think Nick and I and the city manager, Larry Stevens, listened to the governor last Friday, when he said he was interested in opening up some businesses by the 1st of May. We expect to hear more about this next week, this week, but there are certain criteria regarding the COVID-19 stats that we must meet in order to start phase 1. For the business people in our community that have been sidelined, getting the country and the state and the city back to normal can't happen soon enough. And there's a lot of citizens, though, that are worried about declaring victory too soon. So we're 6 weeks into this. Hopefully, we'll be at a number that shows that our numbers are stabilized in the next few days. And the next step will be how to rebound the economy and not rebound the virus. When the governor, in his conversation last Friday that we heard, he spoke about allowing churches, retailers, and restaurants to open inside facilities. And he'd like to see this start happening around the 1st of May. There's going to be a lot of difficulty for the retail or the restaurant folks to be able to figure out how to arrange their business to inside facilities in order to maintain social distancing and all the other practices that we've become to expect. I didn't think we had that many restaurants, but what was the number that Janet gave us, Larry, on how many restaurants we had?
Roughly 240
Roughly 240
restaurants and bars.
That's a lot of folks to get a hold of, and I would like to see our staff and maybe the chamber work closely with the business and the business community and community organizations to see if we can't get the right information to those folks. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, I don't know what the governor, I don't know what the governor's going to say, but what I hope he is going to say is lay out a plan with some succinct guidelines as to how restaurants, bars, and retailers could open again. And I'm sure one of the standards is they're going to have to find a way to maintain social distancing. And I have full faith that our businesses will figure out a way to do that within the guidelines that are put out there. So it's incumbent upon us to let them know what those guidelines are. The other thing is we'll look closely and make sure that we're in sync with Oklahoma City businesses as well, since we're obviously right next to one another.
Larry, I understand that the Chamber of Commerce is working with EDA and they're setting up a task force. Can you give us a little guidance on how that's happening, or
Well,
city involved in it?
It's something that's just starting to happen. It's an initiative by Sherry Jordan at the Chamber and Janet Yao with the EEDA, and they are forming, I think they call it an Edmond Economic Development Recovery Task Force. We have them scheduled to have a discussion with you at your regular city council meeting a week from tonight. But I think what they're trying to do is bring together people from various sectors of our local economy for some discussions about how this community might move forward together as we move away from this. So I think should be a very worthwhile effort, and they'll have more information on that Monday.
Okay. All right. One of the other ones I thought was sort of a difficult situation is we have a lot of gymnasiums, we have a lot of recreational facilities in our town, both public and commercial and private. I think we need to figure out when and where. That's mostly a council decision. The governor's not going to give us a whole lot of guidance on that. So we need to figure out what we want to do. And so we would probably need to have some recommendations from staff, whether we do that at phase 1 or phase 2, and maybe do some at 1 and do some of the others later on. We still have the issue of the team sports, which probably wouldn't be permitted until phase 3. But certainly there's an area too that will cause some discussion, shall we say, on when we bring it back on board. Any thoughts, council?
Well, would we continue our somewhat of our strategy of working with Oklahoma City on that as well?
Well, I think the parks thing is certainly one of those things, but our recreational things, and we've done some things in the private, like the church playgrounds and the church that's a little bit different, and I'm not sure that they ever stepped into that bowl or not, but that's sort of when we did it and when we should do it. Probably would be some discussion, some recommendation, some coordination around the community to figure out which way we should do. He's not going to give us any guidance, and we're going to sit out there and maybe some of these golf courses and tennis centers could be opened up a little quicker than we would have originally thought here a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, just a thought that I think staff needs to give us a little guidance on those particular activities. Because a lot of those closures were staff driven. Is that a pretty good assessment, Larry?
Yeah, we'll have recommendations for you.
Okay. Another tough one for us might be the barbershops and salons and nail salons and the dog groomers and that. I don't know who we'd ask for advice and assistance on that one. The health department maybe, I'm not sure, but there's certainly a lot of people involved in that business. We've gotten to know some of them a little more than we thought we would a couple of weeks ago. But I know my wife is very concerned about when the hair salons will be back in business, and I noticed Nick's getting a little shaggy there too. So
I'm going back to the 70s.
All right.
Well, Mayor,
Anyway,
this is
the
Darryl.
last thing is, special events groups. We're going to start bringing those on board, but I guess until you get through phase 2, you're still limited to about 50 people. So that's not going to be anything. That'll be a few weeks away, at least more than a month away, I would think, before we get into phase 2, certainly. So we have plenty of time to work on that one, perhaps. But those are just some of the things I thought of. Council, you have any other comments regarding this?
We have I'm on the Visit Edmond board, and we actually have a meeting tomorrow, a virtual board meeting tomorrow to discuss. We have 8 somewhat large events that we're planning to come to Edmond. Either conferences or events. And, we just want to, as a committee and that board, we just want to stay in touch with that. We don't know right now what's going to happen, but we want to stay ready. I think from that group, we think that obviously when we can start to come out of this, that tourism and those types of things is definitely something that will help our economy a lot here in Edmond, our local economy. So we just want to stay in touch. But wanted to report to y'all that we have a board meeting tomorrow, and we'll continue to do that until as long as we have to.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to thank Casey and his staff for putting this together. I noticed in addition to Josh's board, they're having the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow night. That will be a virtual meeting. And I appreciate all that they're doing to try to make those things happen. It'd be the first Planning Commission meeting in almost a month and a half. It's almost unheard of for us to go that long without a Planning Commission meeting. So, any other thoughts, Council?
I was just thinking that, a lot of our discussions, we just need to be working with the health department and trying to get as much information from them and as quickly as possible to help facilitate our decisions.
Well, their daily report now is much more informative than it has been in the past. The information Josh was asking about it earlier too, and we mentioned this to the OML folks, that having the information by city or by zip code would be more appropriate for us to figure out whether we're doing enough in our community or just how dangerous the situation is in our community. And having that information that they started releasing last Friday has certainly been very helpful for me in sort of getting a feel for how our situation is. And I feel pretty comfortable with it. You know, considering that 6 weeks ago we had our first case in the county, and now we've got 50 some or 40 some in our city now. That's that's a pretty rapid expansion of the illness. Any other thoughts, council?
No.
Very well. So I see no need for a motion to amend anything. So that's the extent of our business items for this meeting. If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
Well, real quick, Mayor O'Neill, just want to let you know there are no hands raised at this time.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Brosh. Thank you, Casey. I appreciate that very much.
Move
Need a
to
motion
adjourn.
to adjourn?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second?
Hey, Cindy, you want to do the roll call?
Yes. Council members Massey,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Chapman,
Yes.
Mayor O'Neill.
Yes, 5-0. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.